It's a topic none of us feel comfortable talking about. It's a topic that we never bring up at the dinner table or put on our resume. We're all kind of hush-hush. We try to avoid it like the plague. What is the topic? Failure. Well, I've got some tips and some advice on what strong people do when they fail, and the most important thing to know when you fall on your face and life doesn't go the way you thought it would. My name's Mike Foster, and this is Strongest You. So a really good friend of mine was the literary agent for New York Times bestselling author John Maxwell. Now, John Maxwell has sold millions and millions of leadership books. He's an incredibly successful author. But you know what his worst selling book of all time was? It was a book on failure. Nobody wanted to read about failure. Nobody wanted to talk about failure. We just want to pretend that it doesn't exist. And sometimes it feels like failure is a dirty word. But I think it's really important if we want to live strong lives and we want to have strong relationships, we want to be a strong leader at work. We're going to have to deal with failure. We're going to have to talk about failure, and we're going to have to learn how to maximize it. I love what Thomas Edison said about failure. He says, "I have not failed." He says, "I just found 10,000 ways that it won't work." And I love that attitude. And that's really the attitude we should take, that failure is only information about what not to do again. And so often in our lives, we give it way too much meaning. We give it way too much weight. Instead of failure being this event that creates data of what not to do, we think that it's somehow about us and our worth and our value. And that's a mistake, because failure is just an event. It's not an identity. And so as you think about maybe the mess ups and the screw ups of your life, you think of the times where you have fallen on your face, where you've embarrassed yourself. It happens. It happens to everyone. And the strongest people that I know what to do with failure. They learn from it. They use it as data. And they know that it's just an event. It's an experience, but it doesn't necessarily define their future, and it doesn't necessarily define who they are. I also found out, and have figured this out in my own life, is that we're all going to fall, right? We're all going to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. That's a part of being a human being. Any human beings out there? Yes, I know there are. And so every one of us is going to experience this. But it's not about falling. It's about the landing. And how do you land after a failure? I remember, I've written a few books in my life, not like John Maxwell, and I haven't sold nearly as many books as John Maxwell, but I had this one book that I put out, and it didn't do very well. It wasn't on failure, by the way, but it didn't sell like I thought it was going to sell, and I was bummed out. I put a lot of energy and work and effort into this project, and it just did not go the way I thought it was supposed to go. It didn't sell many copies. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to talk about it with my friends. And it felt like just a complete defeat. But here's what I noticed when I fell, or when that project fell and sort of broke into a million pieces. I used that momentum, that failure, to launch some new projects. I created an e-course. I created a podcast, and all of those have done really well. But it took that failure, and it took that learning, and it took that momentum of falling to bounce back. So it's not so much about the falling, it's about the bounce. And I think there's a couple different ways that we approach failure, and when we look at when we fall or mess up. A lot of us, when we fall, we hit concrete, and failure just feels like we're shattered, we're broken. There's no future for us. We just break open and it's over, never to try again. Some of us, when we fall, we don't land on concrete, we land on quicksand. We just get stuck there. and we stew in it, and we ruminate on things we should have done better, differently, or we really allow our lives to be defined by this moment. We get stuck there. It's almost like this boogeyman that haunts us. And that's those two ways of concrete, landing on concrete, and landing in quicksand are not going to produce the results that we want to see. It's not going to create strength in your life. But you know what? The other thing that you can land on? You can land on a trampoline. And that's what happened with the book. When I screwed up, when I failed there, when that thing flopped, I hit the bottom and I hit a trampoline and I bounced back. I used that momentum, all that energy from the failure to launch something new. And that's what strong people do. That's what I encourage you to do. Take these moments that feel overwhelming or defining your identity and use them to launch something new. Maybe you've had a failed marriage. Maybe you've had a failed business. Maybe you feel like a failure as a parent. Use that energy not to shatter your life when you fall, but use it to begin to dream again, to hope again, to do things differently, to think of new strategies and new ways to dream and create. And maybe you feel like a failed parent right now. Well, step back and use that energy and go, well, how could I do something different with my kid? How can I connect with them in a better way? How do I not repeat the same mistake? Use failure as data. Use failure as this opportunity to learn. Use failure as a way to launch something new. So I want to make this really clear. Failure is an event, not an identity. It's simply data about life. And what if you and I took the approach of Thomas Edison? Let's try something 10,000 times, knowing that one day, and after 10,000 attempts, we might produce something that lights up the world. And all of that is going to be dependent on how you fall and what you fall on. You can fall on concrete and have failure shatter your life. You can fall in quicksand and get stuck there. Or you can do what strongest people do, what the strongest people I know do. They fall onto a trampoline and they lift and they bounce and they create something new and beautiful for themselves, for their friends, and for the world. Hey, thanks for being with us. I would encourage you to head on over to strongestyou.org, where you can sign up to have these episodes delivered to your inbox every single week. It's totally free. You sign up at strongestyou.org, have them delivered, get some extra content. Also, we'll make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that right now. And don't forget to join us for Forever You this Sunday. We'll see you next time.